Hi, I'm Luke. I'm the host of the Study Anchor podcast. It is a cold and windy day here in Illinois, so wherever you are, keep bundled up and stay warm, okay? Today we are continuing our series to the book of Proverbs, our study where we go and spend about 10 minutes a day studying through a chapter for the whole month of January. So today, day 17, we're in Proverbs chapter 17. We'll read through the passage, see what the Lord has to say to us in that, and trace some of the main themes, and hopefully apply it to our day well. So, starting verse 1, chapter 17, in the ESV. Better is a dry morsel with quiet than a house full of feasting with strife. A servant who deals wisely will rule over a son who acts shamefully, and will share the inheritance as one of the brothers. The crucible is for silver, and the furnace is for gold, and the Lord tests hearts. An evildoer listens to wicked lips, and a liar gives ear to a mischievous tongue. Is it mischievous or mischievous? I don't remember. Whoever mocks the poor insults his maker. He who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. Grandchildren are a crown to the aged, and the glory of children is their fathers. Fine speech is not becoming to a fool. Still less is false speech becoming to a prince. A bribe is like a magic stone in the eyes of the one who gives it. Wherever he turns it, he prospers. Whoever covers an offense seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates close friends. A rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows to a fool. An evil man seeks only rebellion, and a cruel messenger will be sent to him. Let a man meet a she-bear robbed of her cubs, rather than a fool in his folly. If anyone returns evil for good, evil will not depart from his house. The beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the barrel breaks out. He who justifies the wicked and he who condemns the righteous are both alike an abomination to the Lord. Why should a fool have money in his hands to buy wisdom when he has no sense? A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. One who lacks sense gives a pledge and puts up security in the presence of his neighbor. Whoever loves transgression loves strife. He who makes his door high seeks destruction. A man of crooked heart does not discover good, and one with dishonest tongue falls into calamity. He who sires a fool gets himself sorrow, and the father of a fool has no joy. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. The wicked accepts a bribe in secret to pervert the ways of justice. The discerning sets his face towards wisdom, but the eyes of the fool are on the ends of the earth. A foolish son is grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. To impose a fine on the righteous man is not good, nor to strike a noble for their uprightness. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. This is the word of the Lord. So we have in chapter 17 a continuation of the Psalms of King Solomon. Not the Psalms, the Proverbs. These general statements of wisdom, these statements, the phrases, the sayings that are meant to guide us towards wisdom, to point out general truths in light. They're not always commending something, they're not always recommending something, but rather are just pointing towards things that are generally true in order to help us to understand our world better, and to point us to the way that is wise, to the way that is righteous, to the way that is good, to the way that is honoring to God with the way that we live. So we see in a couple of these verses more prominent themes that keep reoccurring and popping back up again throughout our study of the book. We have, for instance, in verse 1, that hunger is better than strife, that it's better to eat a dry morsel, a small, pitiful meal in quiet, rather than a full feast in a house that's full of strife. So it's better to eat, cheese and crackers than it is a 5-course meal with people that are always bickering. Verse 3, the Lord tests the heart. As the fire of the furnace tests precious metal, so the Lord is testing the heart of people. We know that God sees to the heart, which is why he judges beyond the externals. John chapter 7, God judges not by outward means, but judges inwardly, and calls us to do the same. Don't judge by outward appearances, but judge with righteous judgment. Verse 5, to laugh at the poor and the perishing is an insult to God himself. It says, whoever mocks the poor insults his maker, and he who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. So for the prideful people, the people who put their security and their value in their wealth, in their possessions, the wealthier people who mock the poor, what they're doing is mocking their creator, because those people are made in the image of God regardless of their social standing. And they don't realize that it's God who gives and takes away. It is the Lord who puts us in situations and lives. And so when one person has more than the other, it's by God's good plan. It's not because they're less than other people. And he who is glad at calamity will not go unpunished. The kind of people that get excited at catastrophes, at stock market crashes. Oh yeah, that rich person got robbed. It's time for him to get his due. The people who take joy in the suffering of others, those people will not go unpunished. Verse 10, a rebuke has an effect on a wise man. This is another theme that keeps recurring, that the wise person is the one who receives instruction and correction. It says a rebuke goes deeper into a man of understanding than 100 blows to a fool. And so if you go and correct a wise man, if you say, hey, I think you're off on this, or I saw you do something and I don't think that was right. I want to offer a humble correction. I want to tell you that I don't think that was honoring to the Lord. That person, whether it's a moral failure or something that he was just incorrect about, the wise person will accept that. They will go, oh, I didn't realize, or they'll admit, yeah, that was probably the wrong thing to do. And they'll be more effective to that person than 100 blows to a foolish person. Even a severe beating won't have the effect on a foolish person than correction will on a wise one. Also in verse 15, that commending evil and condemning good are both abominations to God. It says, he who justifies the wicked and condemns the righteous are both alike abominations to the Lord. So the one who looks at something that is evil, that is awful, that is wicked, and says, that's fine, that's good, I like that. And the one who also says something that is good, something that is holy, something that is pleasing to God, and condemns that and says that's wicked, both of those are despicable in the eyes of God. We see in the New Testament references to people who not only rejoice in those who do evil, but also commend them for it. That they don't just pass over people's sins and just ignore it like it's not a problem, but rather they even celebrate it. And how true is that of our culture today, and basically all society through history, where by and large, there are so many people today who look at the things that God hates and say, I like that. That's fine. This whatever social issues that are going on that God says in his word are despicable. And they say, no, I think it's a good thing. And the things that God says in his word are true and virtuous that society says, no, we can't have that. That's not good for us. So how prevalent is that for us today? Verse 22, a joyful heart is good medicine, and a crushed spirit dries up the bones. It's kind of like that old phrase that medicine's the best laughter. It's the same thought that joy that is overflowing, joy that's internal, it does a person good. That even if they're suffering, even in their midst of pain or sickness, that the joy that is coming from them, the joy that we know ultimately comes from the Lord, is good to them. It does good to the body. In the end, verses 27 and 28 speak of how sometimes it's better to say nothing than to say anything at all. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and a cool spirit has a man of understanding. And even a fool who keeps silent is still considered wise. I think Abraham Lincoln said that it's better to keep my mouth closed and have people think that I'm a fool than to open it and confirm it for them. So it's that same idea, like realize that when you're out of your depth, when you don't have anything to say, it's better not to say anything at all. If you've been blessed by this, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please share with a friend. I hope this encourages you to go and live in a way that's honoring to the Lord. We will see you tomorrow. God bless.